Welcome to the Choice Magazine podcast, Beyond the Page. Choice, the magazine of professional coaching, is your go-to source for expert insights and in-depth features from the world of professional coaching. I'm your host, Garry Schleifer, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. In each episode, we go, guess what? Beyond the page, and dive deeper into some of the most recent and relevant topics impacting the world of professional coaching, exploring the content, interviewing the talented minds behind the articles, and uncovering the stories that make an impact. Choice is more than just a magazine. For over 20 years, we've built a community of like-minded people who create, use, and share coaching tools, tips, and techniques to add value to their businesses, and of course, to impact their clients. In today's episode, I'm speaking with executive coach Joe Dunn and executive and team coach Julian Humphreys, who are the co-authors of an article in our latest issue. For those that are watching, there's the cover. Technology in AI, will it support or replace human coaching? Inquiring minds want to know. Their article on page 38 is entitled, Can Artificial Intelligence Deliver Transformational Coaching? A little bit about the gentleman we have as guest today. Joe is an executive coach who's worked with leaders in tech startups and scale-ups for 8 years, including Pinterest, Airbnb, Segment, Discord, and many others from Series A onwards. His operational experience prior to coaching includes everything from being one of the 3 guys in a garage, and I don't think he's talking about a band, to being on the exec team of a successful public company. In addition to his operational experience, his coaching style is informed by a 30-year fascination with how people grow and change. His approach is eclectic, integrating a CTI certification, welcome to the club, with learning from cognitive therapy, yoga, a 30-year mindfulness practice, Go Joe, surfing, and improv, among other things. So that's pretty eclectic. Joe likes to keep, and he still tries to keep it light, whilst being as directly challenged as the situation allows. His personality is one of humor, which I've already discovered, overlaying a deep seriousness of purpose. On the other hand, we have Julian, who's, I'm going under his desk to hide after that one, is an executive. On the other hand, is an executive and team.
Yes,
You're
no
not
humor
introduced
at all.
yet. You just stay in your corner. Julian is an executive team coach with over 2 decades of experience as a strategist in the technology industry. Since 2013, he has held leadership, advisory, and coaching roles in the finance, legal, logistics, healthcare, pharmaceutical, and professional services industries. Julian earned his PhD in education from the University of Toronto and is the founder and former editor-in-chief of Philosophy of Coaching and International Journal. He designed and teaches several ICF accredited courses, including psychology for coaches, philosophy for coaches, and level 3 mastery. Julian holds the professional certified coach credential with his MCC application process. Welcome to the club. I'm working towards the same goal from the International Coach Federation, and is trained in coactive coaching and organizational and relationship systems coaching. He's certified to administer the Leadership Circle 360 leadership and collective leadership assessments. He's currently because he's not busy enough with all of that. He's currently pursuing the registered psychotherapist designation with the Toronto Institute for Contemporary Psychoanalysis. Thank you so much for joining me, gentlemen. That is a lot. You guys.
Thank you. That was
busy,
a lot.
Busy. How'd you even find time to write an article? All right, and to work together to do it. Well, first of all, how did you 2 meet?
I attended, I can't remember how I came across it, but I came across Julian's philosophy or psychology? So Julian does both philosophy for coaches and psychology for coaches, and I did both of them, and we met during the first one of those, which was about 3 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
And then how did you figure out that you both wanted to write about AI and get together on that page? Page, get it, right?
Yeah.
You can't talk to Joe for long before he's marveling at the innovations all around him in San Francisco. So he would send stuff to the group and to me as things were developing, and he was kind of ahead of the curve on all of this. So we sort of struck up a conversation, and then when I saw that there was a issue of choice dedicated to AI. I thought it would be really fun to write something with him. So that's what we did.
I mean, when I got, I mean, like many people in tech in San Francisco, when the ChatGPT thing hit, it just seemed to me like an enormous change. Along the lines of seeing an iPhone for the first time or seeing a browser for the first time, and having lived through those cycles, I suddenly sort of felt that I saw like, oh,
the next disruptive element.
The next few decades are going to be different. They're going to, we don't quite know how. So I got very excited about it. And now, like most people in San Francisco, we're like, it's going to be a while, and it's not quite as magical as we thought, and it's going to screw a few things up. But my excitement came across, and Julian was kind enough to invite me to write the thing with you, with him.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to ask you were like woo hoo, and then what are you seeing that I'm not hearing that has you go?
It's not so much. I think there's two things going on. I think one is we're kind of used to it now. I mean, one of the amazing things we know about human beings is like something will happen, right, and we'll be like, oh, that's incredible, and then 3 days later we'll be like, yeah, it's just part of the furniture, right? Okay. I mean, not to get too dramatic, but global warming is a bit like that. It's like, oh, it's 119 degrees in Texas. Well, next year that'd be fine, and so there's a bit of that going on. Like we now just sort of accept that the thing can write poetry and do these amazing searches and stuff, and then the limitations are showing. The fact that AI makes stuff up.
Hallucinating, we call it.
Yeah, hallucinating, which is a great word. And it sucks enormous energy out of the planet, and there's just we're starting to see where some of the limitations might be. And a good analogy, I like the analogy of the browser. If you look at a browser in 1994, you look at it and you kind of go, there were people around then who were like, oh, it's going to completely turn the retail business upside down, and you look at it, you kind of go, yeah, it will. And then a couple of weeks later, it might, but it's slow, and it's slow and it's buggy, and maybe sometimes. So there's that. I think we're just starting to. The shine's come off it a little bit. I wouldn't say it's still revolutionary. It's still a huge deal. It's just that I think we're off the immediate hysteria a little bit.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. Well, let's get into your article then, and let's get a baseline. How do you guys define transformational coaching?
Yeah, so this is a big question, and we didn't define it. We basically went with your question in the spec, which was something along the lines of, can AI deliver transformational coaching? And we basically said, well, it would be a whole article and more just to define what transformational coaching is, but we will assume that transformational coaching is something that humans can do, and the suggestion there is that computers can't do it. So really, we're answering the question: can AI coach like a human can coach? And if so, then presumably they can do transformational coaching if humans can do transformational coaching.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of sort of thinking around what transformation is and there's a sort of definition of coaching in some way that is defined to transform people, but transformation itself is undefined. So it's a bit of a bit of a complicated conversation. I used to distinguish myself a little bit in some of the CTI courses by questioning the idea of if transformation was possible at all. Right? I mean, does a human being ever really transform? Like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's a pretty deep rabbit hole to go down. But I think the thing that caught my attention, which was kind of what caught Julian's, is this idea that there is something that humans can do, which is inherent, like only a human can do it, and a machine will never be able to do it. And that was the thing that I found particularly kind of questionable, right? Or at least something we should question, So anyway, that for me was the core of the article, this idea that there's something just inherently human, and no matter how great these machines get, they'll never be able to do this thing.
Are you still of that mind? They'll never replace?
I think it's an open question. That was I guess my I wouldn't say purpose, but my agenda in writing the article was we don't know. And I was mostly reacting against a whole slew of articles which were of the form, oh yeah, you know, it writes poetry, but the poetry's not very good. So it's never going to replace the inherent insight that humans have that produce good poetry, you know, just never will. And in the coaching world, it's like there's something magical that we do in a session that only a human can ever do. And I'm like, I don't know, like, is there, you know? and I still don't know. But I think we should be, I guess to bring it back to coaching terms, like, I think we need to have beginner's mind around it. Like, I just don't think we know.
Yeah.
And
yeah, and I think if you think about what you might mean by transformation in a coaching context, I'll give you an example of a client of mine who is a sort of tech guy and has used ChatGPT to transform something about the way he does things in the world. He basically took his the transcripts of his conversations on Tinder and got ChatGPT to analyze those transcriptions and said, you know, where could I do better for the result that I'm looking for? And consequently, he transformed the way that he engages with potential dates on Tinder. So is that transformational coaching that the AI delivered? Maybe. I don't know. It depends what you mean by transformation.
Yeah, or transformational coaching as a term, right? Did transform, is he married now, 2 kids and blah, 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 or getting
right. Is that what we mean by transformation, that on some core identity level, you're different than you were before?
Right. And it's, and to pick up on the thread about machines will never be able to be transformational. I mean, what he did there was essentially a bunch of pattern matching, right? Which is a lot of what which is one chunk of what we do in a coaching practice. Like we're doing it organically, but when one of our clients says something, we're like, oh yeah, that fits with the things you've said before. It fits with stories about your family patterns. It fits with models that I have in my head about whatever, attachment theory or family theory or cognitive behavioral therapy. And therefore I can tell you this thing. But that's pattern matching, right? And a computer, you know, an AI system can certainly know about attachment theory and cognitive behavioral therapy, and it can have a complete record of all the sessions. So can it do a good job of pattern matching? Probably.
Well, and the more we use it as a tool, let's say for mentoring and transcribing, analyzing our transcribed recordings, the actual recordings, the better it, and I mean, we're supposed to get better. Why wouldn't a machine get better?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, while we're on the topic of using AI, how do you gentlemen use AI in your coaching now, or plan to use it?
I have been using it more in the form of experimenting than, you know, a regular practice. But for the past few years, I've been very diligent in taking notes after each session. Just kind of notes of what happened. You know, we talked about this, we talked about that. And sometimes I have some additional insights that come out during the note-taking part. And I was really just doing it so that I could remind myself of the conversation, not for any other reason. But so now I have, you know, I don't know, a year's worth of like weekly or bi-weekly sessions transcribed with dates and stuff. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to anonymize this. So take out all the names. And because who knows what's happening over there in ChatGPT world with data, and there was already a data breach, right, with ChatGPT. So I took out any identifying information and I pasted it in. There's a limit to how much you can actually paste into ChatGPT. But then I started asking questions of ChatGPT about what it noticed. So what are the common themes in this engagement? And then how would you describe this form of coaching? How could I, as a coach, do better in this engagement? These kinds of things. And, you know, it spits out answers that are kind of interesting. it is actually incredible what it determines as the themes. And it can even, you can say, summarize this engagement, and it'll actually do a summary of each session. And then you could say, summarize it in just the whole engagement in one paragraph. I mean, it's just incredible what it can do. And from those new angles, I guess, that I'm getting on the engagement and the notes that I took on that engagement, new reflections come up in me. So that's actually been really interesting, and I will probably continue doing that. And I just wish that ChatGPT was sort of HEPA compliant, so that I don't have to worry about any confidentiality breach.
Yeah, I think that's what is going on over at ICF with the task force on ethics and AI.
Yeah.
Joe, what about you?
Cool.
Using AI for your coaching?
The only thing I've done so far, I mean, I've kicked around things, and I have played with a couple of tools that record Zoom sessions and then summarize them, and I've found them helpful, but I've sort of balked at the idea of recording all my Zoom sessions for obvious reasons. And I don't take copious notes. I take handwritten notes. So I've tried to find, I've kicked around trying to find a thing that transcribes my notes, but my notes they have arrows and doodles and stuff all over them, so it's unclear what I'm going to get. So I've sort of I wanted to get to the kind of place where Julian is at, where you have basically a co-pilot that is helping you sort out what happened and see the patterns and remind you of patterns. So I think that would be extremely helpful both for the coach and the client, right? I mean, it would be lovely to come out of a coaching engagement with a little manual that said, like, over the year, this is what you learned, these are your patterns, these are the tools that are associated with the patterns, these how the tools work, and all of that is eminently doable, right? It's not that's just a case of putting the bits together to do that. So all that said, what I have done, which I found exciting, is I've got people to do visualizations and use the image generators to see their visualization. So, if you're doing a future life visualization, particularly with engineering people, but also with others, you do a future life visualization and they're like, oh, I see this place and it looks like this. And then the homework is to go away and generate a bunch of images of that place. And it's fantastic. It's absolutely magical, because in the next session, you can go through 25 images of what their future life looks like. And they notice things. They'll be like, oh, I wanted a city that was kind of alive, so I added hydroponics, but the hydroponics are like, there's not enough of them, so I added more hydroponics. And then they added a city that's very flat, right? Because you can't have hydroponics in a place with a lot of skyscrapers, and it just really kicks off the imagination, and that's been fun.
What I'm hearing here is, so first of all, you're embracing it, like you're not afraid of it. It's like, okay, let's play with it. Am I hearing that right? Play, a little bit of play, engagement. And I'm also hearing that it's not complete for you for the purposes that you're thinking about. There's still, that's interesting. And you still get, as a human coach, get to choose what you do with it. Your clients get to use it, and makes your life easier. And I was getting excited for your clients doing the visualization when I heard about all this. So there's opportunities to widen our thinking, our imagination, stuff like that. I did the same with that survey that you took, Julian. And by the way, we're implementing one of your suggestions. It's kind of like it's 70 to 80% complete. Like I basically said, ChatGPT, create me a list of questions, survey questions for writers that have written more than once for Choice, the magazine of professional coaching. And I came up with like 8 to 10. And like I say, it was 70 to 80% complete, but it was just took the whole burden of thinking of, what would be the right question. I had someplace I like to edit versus create. It's easier for me to edit than to create. So I've got that tool. So yeah.
I think that, by the way, I think that's a fundamental thread around but also perhaps a threat around AI, in the sense that human beings generally are much happier to edit than create. I mean, creating is hard, and editing is fun and easy.
So creation is now easy,
right? So the I guess concern or the worry is that the most of the things that human beings will create from now will be edited versions of things that the machines create, and the amount of whatever you want to call it, fundamental creativity will go down. Human beings will, the ability to create will dissipate. That's a worry.
I don't know. I don't know.
I was going to say,
There we go.
no,
I
I was
just-
going to say, I was going to say, I actually don't. Two things. I don't buy that argument so much because human beings can't, like, they just create. And the other thing is, like, 99% of what humans create is not very good anyway. And so I don't think that's going to change. Anyway, sorry, I took you off on a tangent.
Julian,
I just think, genuine creativity will be appreciated all the more in a world where there's not much of it. But maybe I'm overly optimistic.
Well, and it's great that humans are optimistic. I don't know, can a machine be optimistic? It can be positive, but can it be optimistic?
You can tell it to be.
You can tell it.
I'd like an optimistic article on AI and coaching.
Well, I think that's the problem, right? These things are going to look like beings, but they can be anything you want.
Yeah, I still
you want to talk to an optimist.
We're still in control. I think the big thing that you're revealing here is we still have an element of control. The question is, how long will we have that?
Yeah, that is the question. I mean, I want to say, give another example of a way that I haven't embraced this, because you said, we're embracing it. But here's an example of how I haven't embraced it. I had a client say to me, here's what you should do. He's, again, in tech. Here's what you should do. Record all your sessions, put it in ChatGPT, and then instead of having to pay you every 2 weeks or whatever, or between sessions, I can just go in and I know your voice and I trust you, so it'll feel like you. And I can ask you whatever question I want to ask you and it'll give me an answer. So it's like ChatGPT customized through
Julian.
For him and any other client. And I can absolutely see that being the future. It'll be somebody who looks like me, who talks like me, who thinks like me based on whatever I've fed it, and people can come and basically talk to me, and it'll feel more or less like you're talking to me now. But you'll have that for, Eckhart Tolle. You'll take all of Eckhart Tolle's books, you'll put it in a customized ChatGPT, you'll take everything about Eckhart Tolle, his tone of voice, everything, and I'll be able to go, you, me, everyone will be able to go and have a conversation with Eckhart Tolle that is verbal, not written. Just, I'll be chatting, he'll be chatting.
Interactive.
Yeah, that seems inevitable to me. And I'm not completely sure how that experience is going to be different from a real conversation with Eckhart Tolle.
Well, you wrote about it in your article as well. What was the conversation about how we get used to technology? At first, it's like we were talking about at the beginning of the call, but you wrote it quite eloquently in your article that we used to sit and thought it was weird to sit in front of a box in the living room, and now we stream everywhere.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's two things there. I mean, we adapt. I think that the phrase we use, we adapt to interfaces that work. So if something works, then we'll use it, right? And so there's that. And the second thing is we like to impute existence into things, right? So there's this classic example from the 60s of the Eliza. Very, very simple bot, right? Which was put together as basically a joke. And people thought, oh, it's a real, I want to talk to it as a therapist, right? And so we're inclined to believe that something that looks like it's alive is alive.
Right.
Sorry, go on, finish your thought.
Yeah, so if there's a thing that looks like Julian and sounds like Julian, and it it's a little glitchy maybe, but I'll be inclined to believe it. I won't, but people will,
Yeah.
And more to the point, I mean, the difficult. So one of the threads I want to pick up on here is you said we are in control. I'm like, we're totally not. Like Sam Altman is in control. The guys that run Google are in control. The guys that run Microsoft are in control. These coach bots that get produced are not going to get produced by well-meaning coaches. They're going to get produced by corporations, and that I think is extremely serious. Like I love all the potential of AI, and I think Julian's outlined some excellent ways it's going to get used. But I mean, you have a coach. So here's a nightmare I had over the weekend, right? So you have a coach or a therapist. Therapist is a better idea, right? So there's a therapist, and you go to like therapistai.com, whatever, and it looks like a person. Maybe these days it would be a chatbot, right? And it's like, okay, great, and you chat to it, and good, you get a good relationship with it, and it starts saying, maybe you should think about an antidepressant, and you think that's a good idea. And the fact that the bot has been created by the antidepressant company is
Right?
is nowhere is or has been sponsored by the antidepressant company, or has been done by a smart little startup in San Francisco who's getting a kickback from the pharmaceutical company,
Right.
is completely concealed, right?
This is an easy fix, though, through regulation. If you had government that was capable.
And willing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really?
Well, we got two different countries going here. So in your corners, gentlemen, stand down.
No, hey,
stand down.
I'm not. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if the vault's Canadian, then maybe I'll be like, okay, that's fine.
Oh man. So,
no, I think this is an issue too, right? You've got people like Sam Altman, late 30s, super smart, super energetic, backed by billions of dollars, versus the old people in the American Senate. I mean, who do you back in that?
Well, that was obvious with
exactly.
and when they hold all the tech folks in front of the Senate, it was very obvious that they were out of their depth.
Yeah, very much so. Well, I know it sounds maybe a little hopeful, but isn't there always still a plug you can pull at some point? Even Sam could pull the plug out of the wall and stop it all.
I don't know. Is Zuckerberg ever shown any desire to pull the plug on Facebook? I don't think he has.
No. But Musk is pulling the plug on Twitter.
Unintentionally.
And Threads is started. Zuckerberg started up with Threads. So anyway, we're on a different thread.
Thank you for reining us back in.
But to the point of it, if we unplug it, does it keep going? Right? It's just a predictive machine, and humans are so much more. But do you think this predictive machine can replace human intuition and that creative insight we were talking about?
I
think that's the question. I think that's the question. I think we don't know.
We're back to the question of, will it replace human coaching?
I think my point of view on that is we don't know, and we should be very humble before the question, and not prejudge it. And my sort of, whatever you want to call it, energy or emotion around it was reading a whole bunch of articles that basically just dismissed the question. There was a David Brooks article in the New York Times, which was like, I've been reading the poetry this thing produces, and it doesn't, it's wooden, and there was an article written by a poet, I think in maybe the New Yorker or something, and it was very much like, when I'm writing a poem, the spirit kind of comes to. I'm not doing this. Right. I'm not doing this justice, but there's this idea that this mysterious thing that happens that can only happen in a human being, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I think we're being faced with that question. I think we're going to be faced with that question.
Well, like you said,
every day.
And when, like you said, you said something about wooden and so that. So to go with what you said in your article, gentlemen, there you said, browsers were clunky, and we thought, when commerce ever hang its hat on this piece of crap,
right.
And then look at where we are now. Anything goes down, and we're all down. Right. And so are we just at that stage where, it's good, but it's not great? Can we control it? Not. We've got all the questions. Is it regulation? Do we have the time to put the things in place before the next iteration? And are we, okay, this is getting wild. Are we using AI to create the things that we'll use to control the AI?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes,
right.
we are.
I know. It's kind of, yeah.
Wow. There's a classic YouTube clip which gets passed around in Silicon Valley a lot around this stuff, which is one of the late night hosts interviewing Bill Gates. I can't remember who it is, about the internet. Maybe Jay Leno, I think. Anyway, and at the time, somebody had just broadcast a baseball game on the internet, right? And Jay Leno was like, "Hey, have you heard of this thing called radio?" Which was a good joke at the time.
Yeah.
But he was completely missing the point. And Bill Gates was like, I mean, I'm not sure what he says in the clip, but basically the idea is like, yeah, we just broadcast a baseball game on the internet, but like now anybody can do that anywhere, you know, forever for free, you know, and that's the analogy with ChatGPT right now. We're at that level. Like, yeah, it hallucinates and it's buggy and it's slow, but this is the first year.
Exactly. And it's how many iterations has it had since they launched it in what, November, February?
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Like 2 or 3. So
yeah.
So we're coming to the end of our time, but I have a big question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a plan for when AI replaces coaching, human coaches? Are you going to retire by then, like I might?
I don't think it'll happen quickly. I think we said this in the article. I think, like many disruptions, it's going to happen from the bottom up, if you like. So the good part of this, I think the positive part of this, we've been a little negative, is my bias, particularly, not Julian so much, is
if you weren't being negative, I would be.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, is this the good cop, bad
so
cop?
I mean, you know, one of the things,
Up
one of the
cop, down
questions,
cop?
one of the questions we always get about coaching is how do you scale it, right? Because it's expensive. Everybody benefits from it. It would be good if everybody in a company, particularly at any kind of leadership position, had coaching. So the possibility here is like they can have coaching. That's good. Perhaps it's not quite as intuitive, not quite as experienced as somebody who's been doing it 10 or 15 years, but it's going to be good, right? So I think it'll start there. I think it'll be a while before CEOs, you know, chief product officers, CTOs want to use a synthetic coach. So, you know, I'm hopeful we got a few years yet. I guess that would be my reaction. I mean, like many things, having a human do something for you becomes a expression of having money, right? It's like,
I know, but then there's a downside of that too. It's like we'd love for everyone on the planet to have a coach. However, I was thinking about this the other day. There's 9 billion people on the planet, and how many registered coaches with ICF? Just a little bit, 55,000 credentials coaches with the International Coaching Federation. So, to me, there's not really anything to worry about, because it's not going to be, to your point, Joe, it's not going to happen overnight that 9 billion people are A, going to know what coaching is, B, want to have it, and C, that it'll be ready. I don't know. Julian?
I guess I'm trusting that there'll be new, more interesting opportunities. I'm being optimistic again, more interesting opportunities that arise if what I currently do is better done by a machine. And I'm happy to go chill on the beach if not. That's my default. I can afford it.
After the kids make it through university.
Right.
Yeah. And the mortgage is paid.
I mean, there's this argument about new technology that you know, we freak out about the fact that new technology is going to put people out of work, and inevitably what has happened in the past is it actually creates jobs that it creates activities, jobs, economic possibilities that we had no conception of. So to Julian's point, you know, one can be optimistic, like, yeah, we may not be sitting down doing hours a week of face-to-face coaching, but I don't know we're doing something else. Who knows?
Well, and to me, it's just keep an eye on what AI is doing, what it can do for you, and use it to the best of your ability. That will allow you to do more coaching.
Is that,
right? Like your visualization and, you know, Julian, your transcriptive notes is making you a better coach, which distinguishes you from the machine. And you use the machine to be a better coach. How ironic. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. So, gentlemen, what would you like our audience to do as a result of the article in this conversation?
Well, if they haven't already played around with ChatGPT, I think everyone should play around with it. And I think you should play around with it as a coach, which is to say, whatever you think you can do to incorporate it into your coaching, either the back end or the front end of your coaching, whether it's like writing your marketing copy or analyzing your case notes, or however, you should explore and see what comes up.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, the whole idea of having a transcription mentor service, and then it takes all the recordings of that client and goes, oh, here's, Jonathan writes, I had him on the other day, and he was saying he's got one, and it'll measure how many open-ended versus closed-ended questions, how long you spoke versus the client spoke, and
Nice.
and all these kind of dashboard measurements. And I'm like, of course I'd want to know that. I mean, that's what I learned in my mentoring. So I could be doing mentoring and still have a mentor coach. It doesn't mean I have to have one over the other. I can use the two and move along quicker on my journey. Not without
Right.
losing quality and experience and, the whole cause and effect. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Julian's spot on. I think
Yeah.
accepting that this is coming, and having an open mind, beginner's mind to it.
Mhm.
I think yeah. I mean, I was in tech when the internet came along, and it was very interesting. At the time, I was sort of, for me, it was new technology. So I was a technologist, but it was a new technology. And at the time I was quite skeptical about it. And which sounds crazy now. And as a result, I missed a bunch of things.
Mhm.
It made things harder. It made decisions harder. It made, my view of the next 10 years more pinched, and there's this moment when these things happen where there's just all these ideas booming around, and it's easy to close your mind to them and just sort of go like, well, that's the Silicon Valley crazies. And it's much more fruitful, I think, for coaching for life in general to kind of, I don't know, to be open to it.
Yeah.
Take a look. I don't know,
Yeah. Go find out what it doesn't do. What do you want it to? Get involved with,
Yeah, exactly.
establishing it firmly in the coaching profession in a way that serves our clients and supports coaching and coaches.
Right.
It's really weird because I can't help but think of my 90-year-old mother who wanted to have a Fitbit because she wanted to measure her steps. But in order to do that, she had to have a smartphone, because you can't do Fitbit apps on a computer, which she had a computer, right? So she still gripes about it, but every day at 10:30, we're on a FaceTime video call on that smartphone with my sister out west, me here, and my mother 2 hours east, talking about recipes and what we're doing and what we're making for dinner. Okay. So I think that if there's a purpose, so maybe to our audience, embrace it, what you guys are saying, learn about it, but find a purpose for it to work for you and just play around with it. Start with ChatGPT like we did, and here at Choice. And I've been just like, I probably don't even know half the stuff I could get it to do. That's the other thing. It's just so
exactly
open. So yeah.
Right.
Gentlemen, I could go on about this forever. Thank you so much for joining us for this Beyond the Page episode. I hope you write for us again. I know Julian will. And he'll invite Joe if there's a good topic. And what's the best way to reach each of you?
It's my website, cloudbreak.com.
Cloudbreak.com. Cool.
Yep, that's got my bio and background.
He's a rainmaker.
Oh, but love it.
That's actually not the analogy, but sure.
Hey, it's his reality. Come on.
That's sure. Yes, and I'm a rainmaker.
Yes, and there we go. Julian?
Mine is julianhumphreys.com, JulianHumphreys, not IES.com.
Awesome, gentlemen. Thank you again. That's it for this episode of Beyond the Page. For more episodes, subscribe to your favorite podcast app. If you're not a subscriber, don't forget to sign up for your free digital issue of Choice Magazine by going to choice-online.com and clicking the Sign Up Now button. I'm Garry Schleifer. Enjoy the journey of mastery.